All right, in this lesson, we are going to be taking a look at graphing linear functions. We're going to start with part 1. We are just going to focus on using slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is something you used back in your junior high math classes. You use your slope and your y-intercept to graph your line. Our lines are linear functions. And so let's talk about what the linear parent function looks like. So a parent function is like the OG. It's the original function that hasn't had anything multiplied or added or subtracted to it. Okay, so we can see with this linear parent function, it always looks like this. It goes through the origin. And so that right there is going to be the y-intercept. And it's also going to be the x-intercept, okay, because that's where it crosses the x-axis and the y-axis. So the y-intercept is 0, 0, and the x-intercept is 0, 0. Okay. Now, we also have a slope, okay? Our slope is going to be positive because this line is going up and to the right. And if we look, we can see that to get to the next point on our line, we're going up by 1 and over by 1. So this has a slope of 1 over 1, which is just 1. Okay, so with slope-intercept form, the y-intercept is our point that we put on our graph, and then we use the slope to fill out the rest of our points. Looking at this as an equation, okay, this is called slope-intercept form, all right? When we have slope-intercept form, we can see we've got mx. So the m is your slope. Your b that's being added over here, or subtracted, depending on your problem, that's your y-intercept. So it'll be 0, comma, whatever we've got there. And then to figure out our x-intercept, which is also called a 0, we replace the y with a 0, and then we solve for x. We get x by itself. And then that tells us what our x-intercept is. Okay, so whatever number we find from that goes first since it's an x value, and then comma 0 since we replaced our y with a 0. All right, so let's talk about slope rules. So this is kind of a review from what you have done in the past with slope. So let's say your slope, your m, was a positive fraction. So let's say m equals positive 2/3. Okay, what this is telling you is from your y-intercept or from any point on your line, your graph is going up by 2 and it is going to the right by 3. Okay, your numerator is your rise, your denominator is your run, and we're always going to run to the right. Okay, now let's say you had a negative fraction. So this could be like negative 1/4. Okay, so what this tells us is from any point on our line, our graph is going to go down by 1 and right by 4. Okay, so let's say you didn't get a fraction. Let's say you just got an integer. So let's say it was like m equals 3. Okay, what we're going to do is we are going to make this a fraction by putting a 1 underneath it. Okay, because 3 divided by 1 is still 3. And so since this is positive, that means we're going up by 3 and right by 1. All right, what if it was a negative integer, like negative 5? Same strategy, we're going to put a 1 underneath. And since it's negative, this means we're going down by 5, right by 1. Okay, if I have a 0 slope, once again, I can make any number a fraction by putting a 1 underneath it. So this means I'm going to go up or down by 0, so I'm not really rising at all. And I'm going to run by 1. So when I have a 0 slope, there is no rise. Okay. When you have an undefined slope, this means that you had some number being divided by 0. Okay, so notice that that top number always tells us whether we're going up or down, okay? The bottom number is your run. So when we have an undefined slope, we have no run. So this is a vertical line. Okay, so zero slope is horizontal, undefined slope is a vertical. All right, so let's keep that in mind. What we're going to do is we're going to graph each of these, and we're going to identify key features. So let's start with the key features that we can see just from the equation. Remember that an equation in slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So we can see here that m is negative 2/5, and then b is a positive 2. Okay, so my slope is negative 2 over 5. So since that is a negative fraction, a negative slope, we're going to go down 2, right 5. My y-intercept, I had a positive 2, so that's the point 0, 2. Okay, so I can go ahead and graph just based off of those. I'm going to go to 0, 2, and I'm going to put my first dot. And then from here, I'm going to count down 2 over to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's where my next dot is going to go. Now, I don't have enough room to keep doing this, but I can go backwards. Instead of going down and right, I can go up and left. So I go up 2, left 5. And that lets me fill in my last dot there. And then the last thing I want to do, since this is an equation, a function here, okay, I need to draw my straight line through to show my linear function. Okay. All right, so we graphed it. The last thing we need is our x-intercept, or our 0. Okay, those mean the same thing. Remember, to do this, I'm going to replace my y with 0. So 0 equals negative 2/5 x plus 2. So I'm going to get x by itself. So I'm subtracting 2 from each side. So this gives me negative 2 equals negative 2/5 x. And then using the help of my calculator, I can divide by negative 2/5. Okay, and I get x equals 5. Okay, so that means that my 0, my point, my x-intercept, is 5, since that was what x equaled, and 0, since I used a 0 for my y. And you can see that here on our graph, right there. That's our x-intercept. This is our y-intercept. And then our slope, we can see that because we went down by 2 and right by 5. All right, so let's look at another. So we've got, this time, y equals 2x plus 1. So remember, y equals mx plus b. So for the m, the coefficient of x, we can see that that's a 2, and our b is a positive 1. So slope is positive 2. So I'm going to make this a fraction by putting a 1 underneath it, which means my line is going to go up by 2 and right by 1. My y-intercept, I had a 1 for my b, so this is the point 0, 1. So on my graph, I'm going to go to 0, 1, and I'm going to go up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1. Now I've run out of room, so I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go down 2, left 1 to fill in the rest of my dots. And then I can draw my straight line going through. Okay, so now I need to figure out my x-intercept. I can't really tell from my graph what exactly it is. I know it's somewhere in between 0 and negative 1. So I've got to make sure that I use my steps to figure this out. Okay, so I'm going to replace my y with a 0, and then I'm going to get x by itself. So my first step is to subtract 1 on each side. So negative 1 equals 2x. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And that gives me x equals negative 1/2, which matches up with what I saw in my graph. So my x-intercept is negative 1/2, comma, 0. All right. Okay, So let's take a break and let's talk about how we can tell if we have graphed our lines correctly on our papers. So you have your calculators, okay, and they have this button called y equals, okay. If there's old stuff, clear it out. Let's say I wanted to graph the function I just had, y equals 2x plus 1. Right, what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to push the button that says graph. Okay, so my graph is not as square as yours graph is going to be, but it looks like this. Okay, and so I could see that that line should be moving up and to the right, which matches what we had on our paper. Another thing that we can use to check how we did is the table. So we can press second graph. And this brings up a table of points. So like right here, I've got a 1 highlighted under the x, and next to it is a 3. So that's saying 1, 3 should be a point on my graph. And so if I look and I go to 1, 3, that's that point right there. Okay? And so I could use those points from my table to help draw my line. All right, example 3. If you're kind of getting comfortable with this, go ahead and give it a shot. We've got y equals mx plus b. My m this time is a 3 over 2, and it is positive, so we're going up by 3, right by 2. My b is a negative 3, so that's the point 0, negative 3. So I'm going to start at negative 3 on the y-axis. I'm going up 3, right 2, up 3, right 2, up 3, right 2. And then I could go backwards to fill out that left side, go down 3, left 2, and that fills in my last dot there. And then I draw my line through my points. Okay, so this time we can see our x-intercept on the graph. Okay, our x-intercept is at 2, 0. All right, if I was going to plug in, I would do 0 equals 3 over 2x minus 3, and then I would solve through. Okay, I can also see my y-intercept here, and remember our slope was going up 3 over 2. Okay, so checking this with the calculator, I would go to y equals, I would clear out my old equation, and I've already forgotten what it was, 3 over 2x minus 3. So I'm going to make a fraction, green, and put next to it 3 over 2, and then x minus 3. Graph, and I can see that right there. Okay, so it looks pretty similar to what I had. And then if I go to my table by pressing second graph, I've got some points. So we can see that it says 2, 0 is a point on my graph. And if I look, I had 2, 0 as my x-intercept. All right, final one. We've got y equals mx plus b. All right, so we can see our m is negative 3 over 2. So this means down by 3, right by 2. That's my rate. Now for b, I don't have anything. It's blank. So since it's blank, I'm going to hold that place with a 0. So that means this is going to go through the origin. So the y-intercept is 0, 0. So I'm going to start at the origin, and then from there I'm going down 3, right 2. And then I can go backwards by going up 3, left 2. Okay, and then draw my line through my points. Now once again, I can see my x-intercept and my y-intercept in the same place. That's the y-intercept and the x-intercept. So I can go ahead and say 0, 0 there. And then of course we could see that slope. We should be going down 3 and right 2. And I could double check that with my calculator.